Hello, everybody, and welcome to 100 Wednesday Web Talks. The theme of this month is personalized learning and assessment. And today we're taking a game perspective on these topics. My name is Mira Kekarainen, and I'm head of business development here at Seppo. And I mainly work with our international customers and markets with marketing and with different types of projects. I also lead a very inspirational school program on sustainability. Today I'm at my home office, but I was actually supposed to have the talk with my colleague Santeri, who is our head trainer, but unfortunately Santeri got a spring flu and could not join me today. But hopefully Santeri gets better soon, and hopefully I can still talk something inspirational today all by myself with you guys. But please do send in questions through the comment field so that we can hopefully make this a little bit more interactive. But let me start by maybe introducing us and Seppo a little bit better. So Seppo is a Finnish gamification platform for learning, and it's used in schools and organizations around the world. And the basic idea that we have is to provide teachers a tool to help them create engaging and fun lessons. And our goal is to make learning fun and effective for everyone, and to provide teachers the kind of help that they need to be able to do this. On Seppo, teachers are really in charge of the whole process. It's an online platform, so you do need an online connection to be able to create your lessons into a game form. But creating games and creating gameful lessons is super simple. You don't need any coding skills, for instance, but you do need to know how to set questions. And you do need to sort of build your lessons in a normal way, but only in question form. But what you do is you create questions out of your learning content and place those questions on top of a game board. A game board can be a live map or any image. In case your game board is a live map, you can even really make your students move and go to different locations to answer the questions. And this actually also increases the amount of physical activity that the students get. And I think that we all know the benefits that will have. Just to mention that only 5 minutes of physical activity per lesson already helps the students concentrate more. And when we increase the amount in minutes, they actually we start to see changes in our brains, and it helps in our motivation, in our concentration, and eventually also in the learning results. But that's what we can do very easily with the live map games. But you can also build a game indoors on top of any image. What you do is you can, in the questions that you create, you can give additional information, links to further reading material, for instance, or links to videos that give more information. You can insert pictures, text, create the questions in audio files or as videos for your students. So the questions can really be like small information packages for the students. But these information packages are always followed up with a question. And then when your questions are all set in the game board or on the game board, then you invite the students in and they start exploring the questions. The role of the teacher is really important in Seppo games, but so is the role of the students, the players, because they actually have to take control of their learning in a completely different way to a normal classroom setting. They are more active, they have to contribute, they have to perform, and they will have to produce information on top of the information that they consume in your questions. So they really take charge of their learning while they explore the questions and while they answer to the questions. The playing process goes like so that the teacher is monitoring the game when it's being played. So we don't just throw the students to the wolves, but you actually follow their progress and you give them real-time feedback based on what they send in as their answers. So it's possible to also support them, also direct them to a certain direction if that's needed inside a game. And that's more or less how a Seppo game could look like. You can use it for teaching anything basically. But we are a Finnish product, and I happen to believe that that probably we would not have Seppo if we didn't come from Finland, because this is something that's been developed together with teachers. But the idea actually has come from the students, and Finland is a great place for educational scene, because I think that we are really open-minded in the ways that we developed education. We have a very strong culture of project-based and inquiry-based learning, multidisciplinary learning, and wholesome learning, and we support creativity as well. And we believe in giving sort of power to choose and also responsibility for both for teachers but also for the students. And Seppo actually, like I mentioned, the idea came from students. And our CEO, one of the founders, Riku, has been a teacher in upper secondary school for over 20 years. And he was on a field trip to Rome with his students. And the students actually wanted to do something a little bit different. So they created an amazing race, church edition type of competition in Rome. And they ran through the churches and sites and reported back to the teachers. And Riku could see that the students were like super excited. They were having fun, but they were also excited about learning. And that kind of gave him an idea that what if we could provide this kind of enthusiasm in any lesson and for all the teachers. And well, that was just an idea. Today we have a full functioning product, which we still continuously develop together with teachers. But this kind of tells that that when we are open-minded and take ideas from different perspectives, we can really bring a lot of change into the educational scene. Yeah, so value the ideas of students as well. But now if I'm trying to take this whole thing into our theme of today, personalized learning and assessment, it kind of fits in pretty well, because when we think about games and gamification in learning, games really make it possible to engage students and bring motivation also for teachers, and you don't really, it's not related to where you are or what you're teaching or what you're learning or at what grade, but it works for everybody. And some of the benefits with teaching and learning with games are that they make the learners really take action and responsibility of their learning, and in a completely different level than in normal classroom settings. But games also add sort of engagement and team working inside the lessons. And they provide a lot of possibilities for choices. And all these And it's also possible to support all learners in a completely different way than in normal classroom settings. And when we sort of combine all these, we really can create great learning experiences for all our students. When we talk about personalized learning, I'm sure that we can all agree that that's something that's a really super important thing, and we all want to get support to our needs and at the level that we personally need. But take that into a normal classroom setting where the sort of the classroom sizes are quite big. You kind of face the physical limitations of being able to reach to everybody. You may not have a possibility to notice everybody inside a normal lesson when you have 30 plus students in your classroom. But when we and this, of course, you try your best, but your attention sort of goes to those students that really need your help, but that leaves then maybe somebody without your attention, but it's still important for them as well, even though they would not necessarily need it as badly as those students that you really had to concentrate on. But with games, we can help in this, because it's possible to sort of give that attention to everybody. And that's quite remarkable, in my opinion. When we talk about, I'll have to talk about this with my Seppo eyes, because that's what I know the best. But when we talk about learning with games, and especially when we talk about learning in small teams inside the games, we can really concentrate on the students' answers. And on Seppo, you can the students, because they get a lot of freedom to choose inside the games. They can choose, well, first of all, their team name, but then they can choose maybe in which order they answer to the exercises. They can also maybe choose which exercises they answer, but they can certainly choose how they answer to the questions. They can send in videos, they can send in audio files, so they can do like reports or interviews or plays or whatever the question is. They can also send in pictures and written text, but they have the power to create their answers to your questions in the level that they know and in their current skill set. And then they get support from the feedback that their teacher, actually gives them to their answers. And it's possible for the students to really like get to make these decisions and choose the correct level, use their strengths and to be able to produce content that's meaningful for them and that will help them learn the topics better. So they really this power and this freedom to choose really like helps them to feel that they are able to learn, and it helps them to build their self-efficacy, especially when they get feedback to their answers from the teacher. But yeah, so this freedom of choice really helps the students to personalize their learning paths inside the games. But it's also very much possible to create ready-made sort of paths for the students regarding their current skill set. So you can have even visual paths in the game board stating that there are maybe a green path and a red path and a yellow path, and you can instruct the students to choose the one that they feel most motivated at. You can really encourage them to use their interests and their sort of their strengths also while they play. But it's also equally and maybe even more easier to create different types of exercises where they can choose whether they want to answer star exercises or diamond exercises or circle exercises or whatever. So there are a lot of possibilities to create this personalized learning paths inside the games. And a very important part of personalization is also, of course, feedback. And I'm sorry that I'll sort of talk about assessment and personalized learning all together, but they kind of go together when we talk about games, because feedback is the form of assessment that we use in games quite often, because that's the kind of assessment that the students get. But when the teacher has a possibility to notice every single answer that is sent inside a game and send in a personalized feedback for each and every question, each and every answer that the students get or send in, it adds to the value, the experience that the students get. I'd have to say that feedback is probably the most important feature that we have on Seppo platform, because it's meaningful learning is just well, you know how important it is. But in games, feedback or assessment is basically formative assessment, because it's a forward helping assessment. It's guiding the learners forward inside games. We do realize that giving feedback, real-time feedback, is really important overall in games, but we do realize that if you have a full classroom of players, for example, it's not possible to give real-time feedback on each and every single answer that you get straight away. If you use creative questions, is open-ended questions, but we've helped this with different types of questions inside Seppo platform. So you can grade some of the questions already ahead before you play the game, but you can still personalize the feedback based on the answer options. So you can really guide the learners inside the feedback as well, and provide them meaningful issues to think about when they actually play the game. Now, when we talk about feedback assessment, it's a little bit different than when we take a normal classroom setting or formal assessment, because in games, feedback is, like I've already mentioned, but feedback is part of the assessment, but so are points. But in a normal sort of formal assessment, we give grades for tests and grades for maybe homework. But in games, we switch that thinking a little bit differently. We gain points, and we collect information. We collect feedback and positive feedback more profoundly, because that's a little bit different perspective. And sorry about rambling a little. I have a distraction here at my home office, but I'm taking the issue further to also to language, because I think that all three of these actually go together. You cannot give assessments, and you cannot basically give good feedback without using good language. In games, language is more positive-minded than in school world usually. That kind of helps the learners forward. And when we think about games in general, we kind of feel good about gaining points instead of getting grades. We kind of feel good about being congratulated on achieving a new level or completing an exercise, and that kind of thinking is actually good for our self-image. It also helps us build our positive self-efficacy when we do it constructively inside learning games. So that's the role of language in games is pretty significant as well. And it helps in giving feedback, and it helps also in forming this personalized learning paths. You should always in games concentrate on what's good and what will help the learners forward, and that's part of the whole deal, basically. I think my 20 minutes is already up. But I wanted to actually show you also, or for you to experience also what it feels like to give assessment inside games. And I'll have to say that I tried to share my screen, but my technical skills are lacking in that. But I've created a small sample game where you can test how it is to grade, how it is to assess students' answers inside games. So my apologies for my lacking skills, but you can do that at this address. So play.seppo.io, and I'm asking you to take in your mobile or tablet or just browser and log into play.seppo.io and give the pin code 69579. Log in as a player, place the pin code in the field, and then you can try as a player what it feels like to give feedback and do assessment. I promised you, I would have shown you here by sharing my screen how it looks like for the teacher to assess the answers, but since I don't know how to do that, I promised to go online as soon as I hit the stop live video button here on Facebook, and I'll go to the game and assess your answers. There's one creative answer where you need my feedback to get your gradings and your feedback. And there is also another creative question, but that has nothing to do with assessment at the moment, but it has to do with your questions and whether you have some questions for the HundrED community, whether there's something that you want the community to maybe discuss, or whether you need help with something. And I promise to forward your questions. If you happen to answer that question, I promise to forward your questions to the HundrED community, to Book Crash, and maybe you can get one of these Wednesday web talks topics also through this method forwards. But thank you, Cesar, for sharing the link. But yes, if you want to try assessing a game as a player now, you can do that through the link. But I think that's it for my part. Thank you so much for joining me to this talk. I hope Santeri feels better soon. I wish you would have been here with me, but hope that you got something out of our talk. And now next week, the theme is still with the Wednesday Web Day talks is still personalized learning and assessment, and I'm looking forward to hearing this talk, and also looking forward to hearing what else the HundrED community produces. And if you want more information about HundrED, you can go to hundred.org. and you can share your ideas there as well and find inspiring innovations, and also join in the ambassador program there. And if you want more information on Seppo, you can find us online as well at seppo.io and on basically all the Facebook as well. But at this point, I thank you so much for joining in my talk today. And happy Easter, everybody who is celebrating Easter, and happy spring for everybody. Okay, thank you and bye-bye.